You ever sit there in the dead of night, scrolling through your feed, heart hammering with a mix of hope and dread, knowing that somewhere out there, the very fate of Detroit's defense is dangling by a razor's edge? What if I told you, Stitch? Between whispers and fleeting leaks, the price tag for a man who could redefine this team's identity just dropped like a bombshell, and it's breaking the silence louder than any lion's roar we've heard in years. Behind closed doors, league insiders are murmuring, executives barely breathing, and the silence is deafening because the name on everyone's lips isn't just a player, it's the spark. Detroit's pass rush has hungered for like a city desperate for salvation. Zadarius Smith. Yeah, the same 9-sack terror who terrorized quarterbacks on the frozen tundra of Ford Field. The edge rusher who once slayed alongside Hutchinson before a bitter, surprising release last March sent shockwaves through this fan base. But now? Now he's a man returned. A prodigal warrior contemplating a Motor City homecoming with a price that shifts everything we thought we knew about rebuilding. Here's the punch. The NFL just witnessed Von Miller, the 8-time Pro Bowl legend, ink a 1-year deal worth $6.1 million base, jaw-dropping incentives, pushing that number to over $10.5 million in Washington. And Smith, the younger, meaner, more productive force from 24, with tears of youth still in his eyes, is expected to command as much, if not more, because Detroit's cap wallet sits fat and ripe, nearly $48 million breathing opportunity into the air. This isn't just dollars and cents, Lions Nation. This is a fork in the road where Detroit's edge rush goes from a whisper to a tempest, a sign that the front office isn't playing games anymore. After seasons shadowed by defensive letdowns and heartbreak, after enduring every knot this year, with clenched teeth, what if this bold gambit finally tears the walls off all our doubts? What if Zadarius trailing back to LC Stadium, where he once roared, is the missing thunderbolt that sends shockwaves deep into opposing quarterback psyche, giving Hutchinson the lifeline he's desperately earned? And for a city that's been burned by broken promises and fleeting glimmers, from the ashes of the Caldwell era to the ghosts of last season's defensive lapses, this moment could be the altar where we renew Detroit's sacred vow to fight, to claw, and to rise. But here's the stinging question, the one that gnaws at every Lion's heart beating in tune with the city's pulse. What if the price is just too high? What if Smith's asking contract demands reach a point where we have to choose between infusing youth elsewhere or handing our defense's soul to a man whose loyalty now hangs in the wind? And yet, imagine the dust kicking up in the streets if we say yes, if we shove aside fear and invest in Smith like Detroit did with its all-time greats, reigniting hope with every snap, every sack, every blow to the quarterback's ribs. Could this be the moment, the reckoning that finally snaps our losing streak's curse? Or the last gasp before the window slams shut tight, locking away the playoff dreams we claw for year after exhausting year? The dominoes are trembling, and if this one falls, if the deal aligns and Smith strides back into the Motor City fold, you won't believe which edge rusher could come storming behind him. Because if Zadarius is Detroit's next champion, if he's the warrior who's going to wear those Honolulu blue shoulder pads with fearless ferocity, then mark my words, this isn't just a signing. This is a declaration. The fuse is lit. And Detroit, we're not just coming back, we're coming for blood. Light up the comments if your soul burns for the Lions, because this story is about to explode, and you do not want to miss a second. Enough silence. Roar now or forever be forgotten. You think this city's been battered into submission by the ghosts of losses past, the heartbreaks that echo louder than any victory? Think again, because somewhere deep inside the soul of Detroit, a storm is brewing, and it's louder than the roar of the Silver Dome back in '89 when Barry Sanders dashed through the fences like a gust of wind unstoppable. Fearless, pure Detroit fire. This isn't just about a late-game collapse or a failed season. It's about resurrecting a franchise that's been shivering in the dark for too long. About finally turning the page on the season we remember for 0-16 when despair seemed like the only thing that could define us. when all hope was a distant memory. But out of those ashes rose a new anthem, a renewed purpose. And every Lions fan who's bled scarlet and blue knows that Detroit's story isn't finished. No, it's just waiting for the ink to spill with the kind of legend that redefines the game. Commanding this scene are whispers of Zadarius Smith returning, a name that could shake the very foundation of Ford Field, an unyielding force who once tore quarterbacks apart, who epitomized the ruthless grit Detroit has dreamed of for decades. Now standing at the precipice, fingers itching to sign on the dotted line and rip through offensive lines once more. Imagine him storming through, revitalizing a front that's looked more vulnerable than a house of cards. Imagine Hutchinson finally having the partner he's craved since day one, a 1-2 punch that could turn the league on its head. And yet, the stakes couldn't be higher because that hefty price tag, whispers of contract demands that could stretch into the stratosphere, threatens to test the very fabric of Detroit's cap space, raises a brutal question. Do we gamble it all for one more shot, or do we play it safe and let this moment slip away into the cold Detroit night, knowing full well that in this game of chess, every move is a war painted in sweat and sacrifices? What if the gamble pays off? What if the Zadarius, in the blue of Detroit, renews our faith, reignites our pride, and finally cracks the code that's kept us out of the playoffs so long? Think back, remember the heartbreak of Jim Caldwell's firing, losing seasons, Calvin Johnson's retirement, the ghosts of battles lost, the moments when the city hung on every desperate Sunday only to be let down again. Remember how Barry Sanders' legendary run had Detroit dreaming, then abandoning those dreams in frustration. The Decagon of despair nearly swallowed us whole. But what if this isn't just about patching the defense, about adding another weapon? What if it's about reclaiming the soul of Detroit football, about finally living up to that legend and transforming Ford Field into a fortress? Again, what if Zadarius Smith is the spark that ignites a revolution? Imagine the streets flooding with the roar of a city that refused to surrender, that refused to watch another season like the last, where every snap echoes with the promise of resurrection. And just when we think that's enough, just when we think the salvation of Detroit hinges on one deal, who's lurking from the shadows, ready to swoop in, to wreck the plans, to throw everything into chaos? Could it be a rival, a team desperate to swoop in and snatch our prize, or maybe a front office plotting a bold move that could make or break the future? No one knows where this roller coaster ends, but one thing is certain. If Detroit signs Zadarius Smith, if they finally make that bold statement, if they push all the chips in, are we finally witnessing the birth of a new dynasty? Or are we just standing on the edge of another heartbreak, waiting for the last domino to fall and shatter our hopes once again? Because if Detroit's coming back, if this story is headed to a climax that'll shake the NFL to its core, then the question remains, will the legend of Zadarius Smith finally rewrite the curse? Or are we about to find out that some wounds are too deep, some scars too dark to heal, and Detroit's greatest battle is still waiting just beyond the horizon, calling us to fight with everything we've got, every beat of our broken but unyielding hearts?